Howdy, my name is Pi, and this is part 3 of New Career Kickstart. In this episode, we will be building our 4th rocket of a new career, and that will take us all the way to the moon and back. So, we have 2 upgrades that we need to do before we can go to the moon. And that will be the launch pad, so we're going to upgrade that for 50,000. And we're going to upgrade the VAB for 225,000. So that's going to take us down all the way to 69,000, but have no fear, we're going to make plenty of money. So on this flight, let's check if there is a contract. Now, there is some RNG associated with the contract system in the stock game. There just happens to be a contract here, Explore the Mun, and all they want is a flyby and gather scientific data from the Mun. Now, it's not the Mun's surface, it's just as we're doing the flyby of the Mun, we'll do scientific data and return to Kerbin. So we're going to take that. Now, all these other contracts here, we're just going to ignore them. Part test, part test, part test, part test, survey, 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 survey. We're not going to decline those. Do not click the red X. Just ignore them. Let them sit there. They will disappear. Now, because of the RNG of the contract system, you may not have, at this point in your new career, you may not get this Explore the Mun contract, for the flyby. Even so, go ahead, build the rocket that we're going to build, and go ahead and do this flyby of the Mun, get your science, and come home. And that will seed the RNG for the contract system, and you will get some other contracts, possibly to go back to the moon, to even orbit the moon or whatnot. So keep that in mind. There are some parts that we're going to need, because this rocket needs to be a little bit bigger to get us to the moon and back. So as you can see, after episode 2, after that, we ended up with 167 science, and well, as you can see here, we're just by simply accepting that contract, we got an advance for that, and that's why we're back up to 156,000. But we need to spend some of these science points, and the part where the node that we're going to unlock is this one right here, and really it only contains 3 parts, right? But this is the one we want, which is the radial decoupler, because we're going to be putting side boosters on our rocket. So let's grab that one for 18, and just what you see here, this is all that we need to do a moon flyby, right? We still have almost 150 points left. We're just going to keep it in the bank, right? Because we're going to get a lot of science on this flight. So let's go ahead and go to the VAB, and there are other contracts, yeah, I know. Like I said, this is the only one we care about right now. Explore the moon. All these others, survey, 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 part test, yeah, we don't do those. All right. If you want to try them, go ahead, but you certainly don't need to get your kickstart, to get your career kickstarted. And this is living proof. So we'll go to the vehicle assembly building, and we're going to load up the rocket, the same rocket that we used on flight number 3. Okay? This is the rocket that we took to orbit. The exact same rocket. We're going to start out, but we're just going to add 2 liquid fuel boosters. Now, we do have the big SRBs like this, but I don't like SRBs. For one thing, they have no vectoring, so they do not help with steering, and they have no throttle control. So we're going to use the radial decoupler here in 2x symmetry, and we're going to put that right about there. Now our side boosters are going to be the exact same as the lower stage of the rocket that we have right now. 3 tanks and the T-45 engine. So let's put 1 tank here. I'm going to put 1 on top and then 1 on the bottom. And we're going to use 2 of the T45 swivel engine. A very good little engine here. And I think we got nose cones with that last, yeah, we'll go ahead and put nose cones on here. Just like that. And that's all we need. That rocket is ready to take us to the moon and back. Now, we're not landing, it's just a flyby. But yeah, this rocket will work just fine. So as always, we check our staging. We want both boosters to go off at launch, but not the center engine. So these 2 engines right here. Then both boosters will drop away, while at the same time that center engine will ignite right there. Then we have the next decoupler, so the bottom stage will drop away, and at the same time the 909 engine ignites. And then we have our final decoupler in the parachute. This will be flight number 4. And we will save that. Now, last time we had Jebediah in the cockpit, and he went into orbit, so he got his level up. But we have another pilot here, Valentina, and we don't want a sexual discrimination lawsuit, so Valentina gets to go on this flight. And when we get into orbit, she will also level up. So she gets to go, and we go to the launch pad. So, first of all, we're just going to get into orbit, just orbit of Kerbin, just like we did last time. So as always, we activate the SAS. We're at full throttle here. And let's turn on our resource panel, and we'll go to stage view. And we're ready to launch in 3, 2, 1. Launch. Now thrust to weight is fairly low because as you notice, it doesn't jump off the pad really quickly, but it's going to be just fine. We'll pick up speed fairly quickly, especially as that fuel burns away and the overall weight gets lighter and lighter. And same thing again, once we get up to about 1,000, we'll start to tilt. There's 900, we'll go ahead and start tilting to the east. Same thing again, getting into orbit, we're going to try to keep our wings level. Of our attitude indicator, the wings, we're going to try to keep those right on this east line. And we're going to do the same thing, tilt over to about 45 degrees relative to the horizon. And we're just tapping on the D key, tap, tap, tap. We don't tilt too aggressively. Bad things can happen, and probably some of you have found that out if you've tried this. That's right about 45 degrees right there. So we're just going to let that go right there for a second. Let's go to map view. Check out that AP. Now our trajectory is slightly sloping upward, which means I need to make a little... Oh, there's burnout. Let's go ahead and stage. There we go. So I'm gonna make a slight correction up or down to the south, and then come back down to our east line. That will help keep this trajectory nice and level-ish with the equator, which will help us get an equatorial orbit of the moon. Well, we're not actually going into orbit, but yeah, that's how you get an equatorial orbit, is to launch into an equatorial orbit of Kerbin. So there's coming up on 50,000. We'll go ahead and tilt on over. More horizontal, which makes that trajectory stretch out. And we're going to same thing again. We're going to cut throttle when our AP gets up to about 80K. And here we go. There's 80K. Very good. Now we're going to time warp on up to that AP. I think I've got a little bit of a cold. I constantly having to clear my throat. And I have a little bit of a cough, but yeah, whatever. It'll be fine. So here we are, almost up to the AP. Then we'll start burning again. There we go. And same thing again, we're going to try to keep burning right on that AP marker. If it creeps ahead of us, we're going to tilt into the brown a little bit. If it lags behind us, we're going to tilt back into the blue. And we're going to throttle down, throttle down when that trajectory starts wrapping around the planet. And we see that PE marker appear over there. We're going to throttle down some more. And then when we get the AP flip, when the AP and the PE swap positions, oh, there's burnout. Let's go to our next stage. When the AP and the PE flip positions, then we cut throttle. There we go, cut throttle. So now we have 82 by 80. Not bad, not bad. Valentina has leveled up, because the reason I know that's because you saw these two buttons suddenly appear. So we can confirm that right here. Valentina has her star. So we're also going to be doing science, of course, on this flight, because we're going to be hitting 3 different biomes. Wait, is that right? Yeah, 2 different biomes, sorry. Which is going to be space high above Kerbin, and that is anything above 250K. That's called space high above Kerbin, as long as you're still in the sphere of influence of Kerbin, right? Once we get captured by the moon, that will be space high above the moon, so, or the moon, whatever, I say moon. So, space high above the moon, which is above 60K. Anything 60K or above is space high above the moon. Again, as long as you're in the sphere of influence of the moon. So, how do we get out to the moon? Well, there's 2 ways you can do it. Go to ship view, map view, zoom the camera out, rotate the camera so that you're looking straight down on the North Pole. Zoom out some more so that you can see the moon's orbit line. Now drag the camera so that the moon is between 2 and 3 o'clock. And some people may not know what a clock is, the old analog clock face. I know it's hard to believe, but so this would be 12 o'clock, 3, 6, and 9. So 3 o'clock here, 2 o'clock would be about right here, 1 o'clock would be about right there. Does that make sense? Now we're going to do a prograde burn. Let's go ahead and go to prograde. We're going to do a full throttle prograde burn when we get down here at 6 o'clock at our orbit line. Alright, so it's coming up pretty soon. What that will do is, orbital mechanics dictates that, remember, wherever you are along the orbit, when you burn prograde, it makes the opposite side of the orbit expand. So we're going to burn down here prograde, which is going to make our trajectory expand straight up towards 12 o'clock. So what you have to do when you go to the moon is you have to aim ahead of where the moon is right now, right? So our trajectory is going to go all the way up here, and it's going to take time for us to travel this distance. By the time we get up here, the moon will have traveled around its orbit and will get captured by its gravity. That's how it works. Now, that's method number 1, the clock method. And a word about the clock method: you don't have to use the clock method. You can do this at any angle. The key thing to remember is you need to be about 45 or 50 degrees ahead of where the moon is. That's why we're burning prograde down here, because our trajectory will be up here. So here, this circle's 360 degrees. 45 degrees would be about right here if we're going clockwise. This would be 90 degrees, 180, right? So 90 degrees, half of that is 45, would be right here. So we're a little bit more than 45 degrees ahead, ahead of where the moon is now. We're aiming for up here. Now, there's another method. It's called the moonrise method. So we go to ship view. When we see the moon start rising above the horizon over Kerbin here, we're going to burn full throttle prograde. So that is almost any second now. And the reason that works is that happens to correspond to the clock method thing of the moon being between 2 and 3 o'clock and our trajectory going up to 12 o'clock. Okay, there's the moon rising right there. So we go full throttle prograde. Now let's go back to the map view and let's watch our trajectory. See, it's climbing up towards 12 o'clock. So if you notice, our orbit line is white, which means we do not have patched conics. And what that means is we're going to have to cut our burn at a certain point so that we don't go too far, or so that we don't burn too short. And it just so happens that 10.5, 10.4, anywhere in that range, that is when you need to cut throttle. So when your AP gets to, we'll use 10.4. And that will give us a nice flyby trajectory of the moon. See, so I'm going to cut throttle right there and just go very gently. There is 10 million. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10.4. So if we had patch conics, which in order to get patch conics you have to upgrade the tracking station, and we don't have maneuver nodes. To get maneuver nodes you must upgrade both the tracking station and mission control. If you upgrade both those facilities, you get patch conics and maneuver nodes, and then your orbit line would be blue, and at this point right here it would show us what our predicted trajectory flyby would be of the moon. But we don't have that yet, right? But it's okay, because we're going to time warp gently, and I cannot stress this enough, be careful with your time warp. We don't want to time warp too fast by accident and miss our encounter. Well, actually we would not miss the encounter. That's a given, right? There's no two ways about it. We're going to fly by the moon. But yeah, just be careful with your time warp. So we're going to time warp out here. Now if you notice, like I said, we don't have our predicted trajectory. It's not showing us in a moon encounter. So what's going to happen is, once we get out here, this orbit loop that we have right now for Kerbin, that's just going to disappear, and then it will instantly show our new trajectory, which will be flying by the moon around the backside. Well, actually, it's a prograde orbit. If we were to get into orbit of the moon, we would be going this way and coming out this side, and if we got into orbit, we would be orbiting the moon this way, which is actually a prograde orbit of the moon. If you make your AP go a little higher, just past where the moon's orbit line is, see how we're just short of it right now? You can make your AP a little bit past where the moon's orbit line is, in which case you would get a retrograde flyby of the moon, which means we would be passing by this way. Either way is valid. You know, you can try it both ways. Now, well, let's just go ahead and get out there and watch what happens. Yeah, it's going to happen really quick, instantly. We'll have a new trajectory flyby of the moon. Oh, wait, before we do that, almost forgot, because this is career mode, so technically we are way, way high, way above Kerbin right now. In fact, we are at 8.7 million right now. But we need to do science. We're in space high above Kerbin right now, so we cannot forget to do our science. That would be silly. So yeah, let's open up. Let's do one set of experiments right now while in space high over Kerbin, right? Separate bio. Pressure, space high over Kerbin. Temperature high over Kerbin. Always get our crew report. Space high over Kerbin. And of course, EVA. Right click the capsule, take the data, right click the Kerbal, EVA report in space high over Kerbin. Keep it, get back inside. We'll turn the SAS back on. And yeah, we've done all of our science that we can do in space high over Kerbin. So yeah, let's time warp a little bit farther. And we will get the instant changeover to our new trajectory. Alright, here we go. And as soon as that happens, right there, we drop out of time warp. That is our flyby trajectory of the moon, right? We're flying by on this side, and we're going to pass out this way. And we'll have a new trajectory, just like our Kerbin orbit trajectory disappeared, and we had this new one. Once we fly by and we pass out over here, pass out this way, this line will disappear, and we'll be in a new orbit of Kerbin at some altitude. I'm not sure, but we'll find out. However, the closer that your periapsis is to the moon, the more slingshot effect you will have, which means your orbit of Kerbin will be larger. Okay? We're at 756. That's pretty far out. So our orbit, our return trajectory back to Kerbin won't be very much. And as you can see, we have plenty of fuel. That was the whole point of building this rocket, so that we do have plenty of fuel in case we need. When we probably have enough easily to get into orbit of the moon and make it back to Kerbin. But this is geared towards the new player, so yeah, we're just doing the flyby. But now we are in. Let me focus the camera on the moon. Double click. We are in the sphere of influence of the moon right now. So technically, if we look at the contracts, we have the check mark by flyby. Check mark next to flyby of the moon, right? So that part of the contract is done. So right now, now we did gather scientific. Well, actually, we have not. We need to, now that we're in space high above the mun. We need to do the science experiments, and then we'll get this other check mark right here for gather scientific data from the mun. So let's go ahead and do our next set of experiments. In space high over the mun. Pressure and temperature. We cannot do a crew report right now because the previous crew report. Oh, we took the data. Never mind. I'm sorry. Yeah, as always, you have to take out the crew report. You have to take the data out of the capsule in order to take a new crew report in a different biome, right? So yeah, we've already done that. So we're going to keep that. Going to EVA. Right click on the Kerbal, EVA report. Yeah, that's all we need. We don't need to take the data because that's really all the biomes that we're going. We could try to for a different biome when we land, but yeah, it's not that big a deal. So we're going to keep that. Get back inside. Turn SAS back on. So yeah, this is a flyby of the moon. Contract will be completed. Okay, now it's not giving us our check mark here until we get back to Kerbin, right? And obviously also for this. And actually, here's a note. Let's check out what the note says. Recover or transmit any science experiment from the mun. So obviously to recover, we have to land safely back on Kerbin. We never transmit our data because you only get a fraction of the science points if you transmit your data. And also, transmitting data uses a lot of electric charge. So if we look at our resource panel here, we're still using the built-in battery of the capsule, only 50 units, but we're not moving this capsule around a whole lot, so we haven't used very much electric charge right now, up to this point. But since we do only have those 50 units, yeah, we don't need to be transmitting data using up all that electric charge because we want the full science points. So yeah, let's fast forward. We're going to time warp. We're going to do that moon flyby. And we'll get out here near the end of this trajectory, and then all of a sudden this will disappear, and we'll see what kind of return trajectory we have going back to, right there it is, drop out of time warp. So we're coming back from almost the same distance as the moon, right? We're really, really close to the moon's orbit line. And we have a PE of 588,000. So when you're coming back from the moon, by the way, this also works for if you're coming back from Minmus, all the way out here at Minmus distance, we need to make this PE altitude. Let me refocus the camera back on Kerbin, double click. We need to make our PE altitude between 30 and 35K, 30,000 to 35,000. That will give us enough time in the atmosphere. That means our re-entry angle will not be too steep. That keeps us in the atmosphere long enough for our heat shield to do its job, right? Trust your heat shield. Let the atmosphere slow us down, and we'll make a safe re-entry back to Kerbin. So right now I'm going to flip back around to retrograde, right? Because remember, we're way out here by our AP. So remember, we just happen to be at the AP, but it doesn't matter. Wherever you are along this trajectory, it affects, when you make a prograde or retrograde burn, it affects the opposite side of the orbit. So to lower this PE down into the atmosphere, we need to burn retrograde right where we are right now. Okay, makes sense? So you don't have to go full throttle for this at all. Just watch that PE number, and we'll put it right in the middle. We'll put it at 33. $33.7, plenty good. And we don't care that our return trajectory is really, really inclined. That really doesn't matter to us at all. We don't care. Now, we have plenty of fuel. Suppose we wanted to change that so that we get more of an equatorial return. You know, like I said, it's no big deal right now. You know, in the overall scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. But how would we change that? So right here where we are, if we burn on one of the pink triangles, which are called normal and anti-normal, that means we're going to be burning north or south relative to Kerbin. So the little pink triangle with the legs sticking out, that's called anti-normal. That means you're pointing south. The nose of our craft is pointed south relative to Kerbin, right? Here's Kerbin, so we're pointed down. South pole is down, right? And if we flip over to the other pink triangle, which is called normal, and it means you're burning north relative to whatever sphere of influence you're in. So right now the nose is pointed up. But let's go back and look at our map. So which way do we need to burn? Well, when we're out here like this, it's going to tilt. It's going to tilt this end up and this end down, and so we want to make it even as we can get. You know, and once again, like I said, you don't have to do this. This is just a little side demonstration, right? So if I burn, I need to make this end come up. And I mix these up all the time, so you know, we're doing this without maneuver nodes. If you had maneuver nodes, you would be able to do it without actually burning. Right? You would be able to predict, it would predict for you if you're burning the right way or not. I'm thinking we need to burn north. That's going to raise this side while at the same time lowering this side down, kind of more in line with the equator of Kerbin. So let's try it. Let's see which way let's see if this end tilts up and this end tilts down. Okay, we're on normal, which is north. And that's the correct way, as you can see. And it's a very small burn, right? Not much throttle at all. Doesn't take much fuel at all. But yeah, we absolutely did not have to do that. It was just a little side demonstration on how orbital mechanics works. All right. So our PE altitude is set. Okay, now when we did that, the PE, notice the PE changed. We were at 33. Now it's at 79. Well, that's way too high. We need to get down and back in. We need to get back down into the atmosphere at 33,000. And that's just a consequence. Why did it change? That's just how a consequence of us making this burn right here. What we did was make an inclination change. And that's just, I can't explain all the physics right now. That's outside, the realm of this video. So, yeah, we're just going to lower that PE. What do we need to do? We're just going to make a little, very gentle, small retrograde burn to lower that PE back down to 33. So let's see, we're all set, ready. Just small throttle. There we go, 33. So at this point, we have all this fuel left. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to ditch that fuel. We're going to jettison that. The engine, we don't care. Our PE altitude is set. We're going to trust our heat shield. The atmosphere is going to do its job. It's going to slow us down. We don't need to burn off this extra fuel to slow down anymore. We just don't. I'm going to prove it right now. I see this all the time. People do that. Some people like to do that. Gives them an extra sense of security, I suppose. And you can if you want to. And what do I mean by that? We're going to time warp all the way down here, and once they get down, close to the atmosphere, close to re-entering the atmosphere, they'll go ahead and burn off all that fuel to try to slow down some more, because they're scared of re-entering too fast. Well, remember what we said. If you burn prograde or retrograde anywhere along your orbit, it affects the opposite side of your orbit. So you will slow down a little bit, but not much. The bigger effect that you will have is lowering your AP. If you burn retro, like right here or something, it's going to lower your AP. But we don't need to do that, because we're going to basically be aero braking. Once we enter the atmosphere, it's going to slow us down, and that's going to make that AP drop way on down also. And we'll take a look at that. So yeah, once your AP altitude is set between 30 and 35, then you're good to go. You don't need to make any more engine burns. Okay? So what we need to do now, we're going to time warp down to about here. And once again, be careful with your time warp. One more time, I'm going to say it. Be careful with your time warp. Please. Just be patient. So we're going to time warp, not too fast. Once we get down here, we're going to go ahead and jettison that stage. Okay. But as you notice, we're still on retrograde hold. We need to be oriented to retro when we re-enter the atmosphere. For one thing, that makes the heat shield point forward and lets it do its job, right? Does that make sense? So here we are. We're down here. We're going to go ahead and close up the service bay. And we're going to go ahead and cut that thing loose. Very good. We are re-entering, we are landing. No two ways about it. It's physics, okay? So we're going to go ahead and time warp again, and then, because right now we're at 189, but we're going to go ahead and time warp. And once we get to atmosphere at 70K, it will automatically drop us out of time warp. Watch. Boom, right there. We're officially in the atmosphere now. So let's take a look at that trajectory. I'm going to time warp a little bit farther because we're still in the thin air. So I'm going to time warp ahead and watch what starts happening to that AP as we've got the heating effects now, right? And we're screaming in, right? We're almost 3,200 meters per second. Let me go ahead and drop out of time warp just so you can see the actual real-time effect that aerobraking has on that AP. It's dropping, dropping, dropping rapidly, right? And here is what we have a little bit of overheating going on right here, but it's plenty good. I've tested this many times, even with a heavier spaceship re-entering. You're going to be fine. Trust your heat shield. And our experiments are all safe and sound inside the service bay. So yeah, we do have minor overheating, no doubt about it, but yeah, nothing to worry about. Now, we just heard an explosion. That's because that stage we just jettisoned, it's also having its own issues, and there it goes behind us now. Yeah, it's burning up in the atmosphere as well. Okay, now we have the camera flip. That means that we are on the suborbital trajectory, and we're going to land. Let's see, where are we going to land? We're going to land. See the shrinking back? Ooh. There's a possibility we could get the very corner of this little lake right here. But yeah, we'll be landing somewhere, maybe about right out in here, I would say. Let's just go ahead and watch from up here. Now once we land, this will be grasslands, I believe. We'll go ahead and do that third set of experiments to get just a few more science points. We can actually go ahead and time warp right here. We're going to pop our chute when we get to about 5,000. We're slowing down, slowing down. When the red parachute icon turns white, that means, well, actually, even when it's still red, you can pop your chute. Because by default, chutes are set to deploy when safe. So that means you can hit the spacebar even when you're in orbit, but your chutes won't come out until you're down in the thicker atmosphere, assuming you're going slow enough. Boy, we did land right on the edge of that lake. Oh, we're in the lake. Okay, cool. So I want to take a look at this. Oh, it's a different lake. I was talking about right here. That's like a Great Lake or something. So this is just some insignificant little pond, it looks like, where we're at. Let's see. Well, that's a pretty good size little lake right there, but so we're in Kerbin's water, so that other set of experiments, yeah, it's not really going to make a big difference here, and we'll actually go ahead and do the experiments and just see what it tells us right here. Mystery goo from Kerbin's. Oh, it's giving us grasslands. Okay, even though we're in the water, it's going to go ahead and give us the biome called grasslands. So that's good, I guess. You know, we'll go ahead and take it. Do pressure from the grasslands and temperature from the grasslands. Every bit of science helps, you know. And we'll go ahead and get out. Now we're going to go ahead and clean out that crew report slot, right? So that we can take a new one in the grasslands biome, because right here it's telling us. Remember, do you want to overwrite the existing crew report? No, we don't. We want to keep it, and we want a new one. So we get out of the capsule, right-click on the capsule, take the data, right-click on the Kerbal, EVA report from Kerbin's Grasslands. Oh, look, one quick word about transmitting data. I said you only get a fraction of the science points if you transmit data. For crew report and EVA report, you do get 100% of the science points, right? 100% of this 3.2. But still, it does take electric charge. Anytime you transmit data, it does use a lot of your electric charge. So just be careful. And for another thing, we don't even have an antenna on our capsule. So let me just go ahead and click it and show you. I'm going to click transmit data, and it's telling us no usable in-range comms device. That means we don't have an antenna. So let's see. Did it give it to us? Yeah, review report. That means yes. EVA report from Kerbin's Grasslands. So yeah, this time let's go ahead and keep it. Let's get back inside. All the data is stored, all the experiments are done, so we can recover. So on that one flyby of the moon, we scored 177 points of science. bringing us up to a total of 366. 366, I'm sorry, 366. So of course we're going to go to the next tab, and we landed pretty far away from the Space Center, so we're only getting 32% of the value. All those parts we recovered only adds up to 3,000, which is only 32% of their actual total value. But yeah, we don't care. That's a drop in the bucket. Look, we got paid for that one contract, so now we're up to 669,000. Because remember, before we left, and Valentina, of course, did her level up when she orbited Kerbin. Because before we left, we upgraded the launch pad to level 2, and we upgraded the VAB to level 2, which took us down to, I believe it was 69,000. But now we're at 669. So yeah, the money will come. No problem. And we're at 366. Beautiful. Let's go down here and check our payouts. So we explored the moon. We got 162,000 for that, plus 15 science. Not bad, right? Another 57,000 there, plus another 3 points of science. And another payout. I think one of those payouts was for the advance that we got, plus another 6 points of science. Another payout. Oh, because there were different parameters. That's what it is. Because we had 3 different parameters on that contract. One was just to do the flyby. One was to do scientific data from the moon, return scientific data. And the other one was to return back to Kerbin from the flyby. So we did all 3 parameters of the contract. So we got all these different payouts. And of course, the world first milestones, which are things that we accomplished kind of on the side, right? We were going to do these things anyway, while we were doing that trip. These are things that happened anyway that we got paid for. So there's 26,000, 24, or 26, 26.4, 18.7, another 26, plus all these extra science points, right? So the world first milestones, they add up. So there you have it, a flyby of the Mun without patched conics. Okay, you'll probably have to practice this, just like getting into orbit for the first time. You will probably fail your first try, your second try, whatever. Same thing with going to the moon. You may not make it the first time, but just that's why we play on normal difficulty, by the way, is so that we can revert to launch. We can try it again. All right, and then once you get completely familiar with all this, how the game works, then you can go ultra hard mode, which, by the way, let me show you that. We go here, escape, and we go to settings. We have difficulty options right up here. Now here you can change, these are all the default settings for normal difficulty, and you can change these if you want to at any time during the game, right? And here's the advanced tab, some more settings that you can change. So yeah, you can change your difficulty if you feel comfortable with that. But yeah, new players, I recommend just stick with normal difficulty. And there we go. We are back home safe and sound. We have a lot of science in the bank that we can spend, because next time we're going to go back to the moon and we're actually going to land. We're going to get into orbit of the moon and then go down for a landing. So we're going to spend the science points that we need to get the parts that will allow us to do that. So there is flight number 4 complete. We did our flyby. We have 3 facilities at level 2 now. We've upgraded 3 facilities. So yeah, our career is being kick-started even to a higher level. And after the next flight, yeah, we'll have plenty of science that we can build a couple of good basic ships that will let us do several different contracts. And by the way, let's take a look at those contracts. We only had one to do, which was the Explore the Moon, right? The flyby. But let's take a look here now. And we still have these survey contracts right here. And we have a new type of contract: ferry a VIP safely to his destinations. it's a tourist contract, basically, is what that is. We have a rescue mission that we can take. Science data from space around Kerbin. That's easy. We can get into orbit. We already know how to get into orbit, so we could take that contract. But that's what I was saying. Just ignore those survey and part test contracts, and other contracts will come up that are, frankly, they're more fun to do. And some of them pay pretty well, especially the rescue ones. And we have a new contract down here for Explore the Mun. Let's see what it wants. It wants us to get into orbit, right? Go on an orbital spacewalk near the Mun. That's no problem. And yeah, return from orbit of the Mun. So we're definitely going to do that, and we're going to not only orbit, but yeah, we're going to land, and that will be our flight, our 5th flight of a new career. We just did our 4th flight. So that will conclude today's lesson. So join us next time for, let's see, it would be part 4 of our new career kickstart, and which will actually be the final part, because at that point your career will be well and truly kickstarted, and you'll be able to go on and just do all kinds of different things, whatever your imagination or the contract system puts in your way. Whatever is on your plate, you will pretty much be able to do it. You know, getting more science and everything, it'll be easy to do. Okay, so thanks for joining. Hope to see you next time, and we will check you later.